Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Bullet Soup. I'm your host, Frank Johnson of the Liberty First Foundation, with my co-host, Michael Marshall of the Liberty First Institution. And today we are here with the gubernatorial candidate for Ohio, Joe Blystone. Interesting fact, Joe Blystone was also the Senator Prima Ballerina for the Russian Ballet. Joe, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. How are you going?
Hey, we're doing great today. Thanks for having me on here.
All right, so we rolled into Ohio this morning at about 11 o'clock. Michael got here yesterday and did a little on the ground, stumping around, checking out. We see a couple of signs running around in some very prominent locations, people giving it the thumbs up. So what caused you to wake up that one morning and say, you know what, I've had just about enough, I'm running for governor?
Well, just want to tell you, politics was never on my bucket list, that's for sure. I'm a farmer, cattle rancher, small business owner, and I never did think we'd be fighting for our freedoms here in the state of Ohio or in this country in general. And we've seen this time and time again here in the last 2 years, the stomping of our constitutional rights, and we don't get involved. We go vote. We vote for the lesser of the two evils, and then we expect a different outcome. And here we are. Welcome to communism. Show me your papers.
Yeah. All right. Now, your current governor here is, I guess considered by many to be a conservative, or at least a Republican. But we know that from the research that we've been doing and from what we've seen on the news, there's been a couple of stances that he's taken that kind of fly in the face of what those who are liberty-loving conservatives would value. What are some of the big keystone issues that you have with him?
He was one of the first governors to shut everything down last year. What happened to 6 weeks to flatten the curve? Here we are 2 years later, and we're still dealing with this nonsense. One thing that Dewine did last year, he picked winners and losers when it came to business. He propped up the big corporations. They had record profit last year, and many mom and pop shops had to shut down. And traveling around Ohio, many of these mom and pop shops will never open again. That's just wrong. He shouldn't have done it, and I believe it's an overreach of his authority. And these are reasons why I jumped into this, because I was on the receiving end of that. We do run a restaurant on our farm, and we had to shut that down for 8 weeks, and it's just not right.
Yeah, so you initially felt the brunt more than most as far as having to deal with the shutdown. I'm sure you had, when you got bills to pay in a business that needs to operate, it's a perpetual motion game. You have to stay open to stay afloat, and you have people that are dependent upon your business, your employees. And being forced to shut down like that, I mean, nobody was writing you a check every week, to stay home and flatten the curve.
And that's exactly right. And I'm not the guy waiting for the government check to come in the mailbox. We have enough of that nonsense going on. I like to be independent, and I like to provide for my family and my staff members. So, this affected many folks all around the state, and if we don't stand up and get in the fight, this is just going to get worse. I honestly don't see this ending. Between the CDC and now the Supreme Court is hearing the overreach of this current administration wanting to use the OSHA as a tool of pushing unconstitutional mandates.
Well, you bring up a good point right there. Everybody seems to think the Supreme Court has the last say on when something is constitutional or not. But honestly, the Supreme Court still answers to us people. Okay, the ultimate authority on determining when something is constitutional or not is the people. Okay, and through peaceful noncompliance or other factors, we can take and nullify any of these egregious laws. It's just a matter of us coming together. uniting together. And good politicians, good governors can do that within their states. They can bring their people together. But you need to have people that are willing to take that stand.
Well, and that's exactly right. We see down in Florida a prime example. Governor DeSantis. Through this whole thing, he's been a rock star. Mm-hmm. He stood up for his people, and he's represented the voice of the people in Florida against Washington, and that's what many states. That's what we need. We're not looking for leaders, out on the campaign trail, people are not looking for a leader. People are looking for a representative to represent their voice. In Ohio, we have a tyrant. Our tyrant, he didn't listen to our elected representatives in our districts. He ruled by an iron fist, and he slammed the door in their face, and then he rolled out the red carpet for the Biden administration with whatever backroom deals that was going on, and as we all know, money's at the end of that corruption. It always is. It's always it's always going to be.
It's horrible. You talk about leadership, and every time I watch the news, I hear that constant phrase: congressional leadership, senatorial leadership. And nobody ever uses the word representative anymore. No. And it's frightening to think that you have all these people that believe that they're leading anybody when the only thing that they're actually doing is misleading everybody. Because we are no longer being represented in this country. We have 635 people in two houses that are pretty much ruling over 330 million plus or minus, 9 on the Supreme Court, 1 in a White House, which, this guy, we don't necessarily know, who's pulling that puppet string.
Right.
But, you say, how exactly are you leading anybody when you don't live like the people? You don't live in their districts. You don't go back. You don't talk to these people. And you write all this legislation that pretty much just benefits yourself. And I always say, well, how is it that they have a 13% approval rating, but yet they have a 96% retention rate when it comes to election? Mm-hmm. And I say, the biggest problem is, how do we get people out of office? Now, you're in a position right now where you're dealing with somebody who's an incumbent, and you're going to be trying to unseat this incumbent in a primary election. Now, people don't realize that in a primary, it's probably easier to win a primary than it is to win a general, because you're dealing with just your constituents and your base. You're dealing with your party. Now, what plan do you have that is going to help you get this guy out and then put you up against somebody where you're going to be able to say, this is the stark difference between someone who's looking to represent you and somebody who's looking to, I don't know if lead is going to be the right word, but maybe rule, because it seems that's what the commonality on the left is they would rather rule than represent.
Well, to be quite honest with you, he's helping us. That's the great thing about it. He does have an R by his name, but he's definitely not an R. He is a D, and he shows this time and time again of his left-leaning ideology, and it's just not how he has managed this state. I mean, just some of the policy that he's pushed forth, or between gun rights or transgender rights, these are the things that he's pushing, and that's far from true Christian conservatism.
Well, when you talk gun rights, that's my forte. I'm the gun guy of the group. I'm the one who's the maniac who spends more time at the range than he does sleeping. But I was doing, because I'm be honest, I'm not from Ohio. I don't have a dog in this hunt as far as my immediate living condition, but I do have a dog in the hunt as far as concerned as constitutional carry. We're trying to get that promoted through as many states as possible. We know that there's 2 bills that have gone through the Senate now for constitutional carry, and while he's indicated that he would sign it, this is also the same governor who just a couple of years ago tried to introduce red flag legislation here and extended background checks. Now, I don't know whether or not this man has actually gone to buy a gun at any time in his life, where he would know that as soon as you walk in the FFL and you say, "Hey, I'd really like that 357 there." Well, you're getting your background check regardless of state law. You're going to get that background check. This is just the constitutional carry. It's just a way of eliminating the roadblock that the state puts in front of the citizen with regard to being able to exercise their Second Amendment. I don't know how this governor can rectify the two positions where he wants extending the background checks, but then he's promising to sign that legislation. Now, from what I understand, that legislation passed on December 21st. So it pretty short distance to get it from the Senate to his desk.
So right now, obviously we had two bills passed, one in the House and one in the Senate. They're a little bit different language between the two.
Right.
So right now we're waiting for the Senate to come out and have a final bill that we can send to the governor's desk. Like I've heard the same thing, that he said he'll sign it, and I do believe he will, because he's in campaign mode.
Right.
We had the Stand Your Ground bill passed. He was going to veto it, but the gun organizations got together and they really took it to his office, saying that they were really going to come out hot and heavy in unseating him. And he decided that it was best he just passed that. But then he turned right around in the last budget that was proposed. He tried to hide the red flag law in the proposed budget. So, he's a sneaky little guy, and you got to watch him in every turn. But he's going to do what's best for his political career.
I wonder if those two competing bills are actually competing by purpose to kind of slow walk it through the legislative session, so that if they get it through the general election, if he should happen to retain his seat, then he could decide to veto it. And if it should happen to go where he's ousted, well, now you're in a new legislative session. Those two bills now don't mean anything. You got to start from scratch. Now you got a new governor in Joe Blystone who's going to say, "I want that bill," and they go, "Oh, well, now we got to wait." So there's always going to be some game that somebody's going to play. What is it going to take for the people to start saying, enough is enough? Enough with this gamesmanship, enough with the political hackery. Let's just get things done the way the people want it to be done. Is that going to take a cowboy hat and a beard to come into the State House and say, "Hey, let's roll here"?
Heck yeah, it is.
Damn right.
That's exactly right. It's going to take somebody on the outside of the outer belt to go in there and break the system in half. We hire these politicians, and that's exactly what they do. They drag their feet. They move at snail speed. And, right now we have two gentlemen, Speaker Cupp and Senate President Huffman. And, they're tools of the Dewine administration, and that's why a lot of times things move at a record slow pace. And it's exactly what you say, if they drag it out far enough that Dewine could be reelected, and then he would veto it. There's many different scenarios to that. So, it's time to hire somebody that's just plain and simple, not looking for a career political job, not looking to get rehired. We're going in there, and in the 4 years, we're going to accomplish more than any of these other politicians, and we're going to push them. What was Trump good at in Washington? Obviously, when he first got in there, legislation, whether it was the left and the right, they didn't like him. It wasn't until they found that, my gosh, President Trump is popular with the people. So we better get out there and we better say, well, we support President Trump. And now they're all trying to ride his coattails and being reelected. Yeah. Well, we see through all that garbage, and we're watching now. We are very eyes wide open, and it's time to hire people who is just going to get out there and do what's right, not play politics.
That's the whole thing, is most of it's being politics, okay? A lot of these people will tell you to your face that they support this position or that position, and they will do just enough to make it look like they're doing something, but really they're dragging their feet on it because they're not behind it. They're working some backroom deal on something else, and they'll let it sit there until people either forget about it or until people push hard enough.
Well, this is how we went from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to show me your papers.
Exactly.
And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what's going on in Europe. And I sat there yesterday. I was watching a video. I was on my lunch break, and I'm watching a video of the police in Germany. It's a paraplegic. He's outside demonstrating the mandates that they have for the vaccine. They picked him up in his wheelchair, took the wheels off the wheelchair, and threw him and the wheelchair into a police van, and then hauled him off. And I said, my God, this is amazing to me that this could go on for so long. And then I realized that Americans are slowly and surely being conditioned for exactly the same kind of scenarios. We went from 2 weeks, stay home and everything will be fine. The disease will go away. And now we're into going into the second and third year.
We've already seen it here in the United States. Okay, in New York City, there were countless videos that surfaced. Everybody tried to extinguish them real quick, but there's countless videos that surfaced of police when somebody wasn't masked, assaulting them.
Yeah, I don't even
as mask mandate.
Yeah, as someone who grew up in an NYPD family, it's embarrassing for me personally. As somebody who went through that whole thing, and my house is full of NYPD memorabilia awards won by, awarded to my family members from the department. And to see what some of the members of that department itself, 48,000 strong, you see a husband and wife sitting in a park eating lunch, and the cops come over and give them a summons. A father's out there playing Frisbee with his kid in a park, gets a summons. I mean, for God's sake, there's got to be some way. I see all the things that say back the blue, but then I wonder, does the blue back you? Because the people that they're coming after are generally the people that are the ones that are supportive of their efforts.
Right.
And I just don't understand why we don't have a more clearly defined line between, okay, this is legal, this is what the law is, but when you have these mandates and these edicts that are written and issued by mayors, governors, that police departments aren't saying, listen, that's not law. That's not a legislative measure that was, voted on and written and approved by a governor. This is one person's opinion, and they're going to follow it. And I say, how are the states going to rectify when the people who've been affected by these illegal mandates start coming out and suing the states over it? How is that going to? Because the governor is never, financially responsible for the decisions that he makes. It's only, I'm going to sue the state. Yeah, but you're paying the person with taxpayer money. Right. You're not going after the governor. You're going after yourself. How do we bridge that gap to make people better understand what their rights are, and have that come from the governor's office? How is the governor better help the people understand this is what your rights are, this is what's legal, this is what's not, and tell them, this is what you have to stand for? Because I think a lot of people are just too ignorant of what their rights are anymore.
Right, and that's what we're dealing with. Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? It amazes me going around this great state and politic and talking to folks. Many people they don't pay attention. It surprised me how many people, they don't even know who their representatives are, whether it's in the House or the Senate. They truly go through life and they're ignorant to the process. Hence, here we are. One thing about being governor is to make sure that folks know what's going on. Dewine doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. He wants to be like a church mouse. He doesn't want people to realize what bill is being put forth in Columbus, what we need to get passed or not. And that's what these politicians bank on, people not paying attention.
No, that's it, exactly. They do bank on that. And to take it a step further, most people don't even know who represents them locally on the county or municipal levels. And the way people need to really start looking at things, and as governor, I'm sure you're going to do this, is each step of the governmental system is supposed to protect your rights or their constituents' rights against the step that's above. Okay, whether it's your county supervisor protecting your rights against an egregious assault by the state. Okay, that's what the county supervisor is supposed to do. That's what the county legislature is supposed to do, is protect their constituents' rights. Governors are supposed to, and state legislatures are supposed to protect their state constituents' rights against egregious assault by the federal government. And that's what we need to start understanding as a people, those are the people that we need to be putting in office.
Right, and that's right. I always talk about the upholding, our Second Amendment rights. When I take over that governor's chair, the first thing I'm going to do is get at a round table and bring every county sheriff to the table and improvise a plan of attack that if at any time the federal government would overreach into the state of Ohio, our people don't realize how much authority our county sheriffs have, and so we need to make sure they're constitutionalists and they actually know the power that they hold. If our administration in Washington wants to send in and try to take away our rights, our county sheriffs have the authority to arrest them.
Well, that's the thing. People don't necessarily realize that the sheriff is the only constitutionally mentioned law enforcement agency in the nation. There's no state police listed in our Constitution. There's no FBI. There's no CIA. There's no IRS. There's nothing. It's the sheriff, and the sheriff is the person who is responsible not only to protect the people's rights, but is also responsible to the people directly through the election process. People don't realize that. How many people don't even realize that they're sheriff? I'll give you a for instance. In New York City, in the 5 boroughs, we have a sheriff in the 5 boroughs. The only thing the sheriff does that I can tell is confiscate vehicles that have gotten too many tickets.
And prisoner transport.
Those are the only things that I see the sheriffs actually do in the New York City area. When you say, "Oh, I'm going to call the sheriff," people, the sheriff, they're like, "This isn't the Wild West." I'm like, have you read your Constitution? Do you have any grasp at all of what your rights are?
Something else that people don't understand is that federal law enforcement, even state law enforcement, has to have the permission of the sheriff in order to operate in that county. Okay. They have the authority to enforce federal law, and state has the authority to enforce state law. But a sheriff can actually shut them down from enforcing unconstitutional laws within their jurisdictions. And that's what we have to start pushing. That's what we have to start at the local levels, getting constitutional people in positions of authority, okay? And getting people that are going to actually protect our rights. And that's what it comes down to. Our representatives aren't there to, quote-unquote, lead us. They're there to protect our rights. And that's what the whole republic system of government is supposed to be, is protection of their constituents' rights.
Now, as a matter of cause, the gubernatorial position is not exactly, for the faint of heart. It's not exactly a small-time job, so we understand that you have your own partner coming into this as a lieutenant governor. What can you tell us about your lieutenant governor choice?
My lieutenant governor, he's a decorated Marine. He fought in the Battle of Fallujah. He received the Navy Cross of Valor. He's what I call a hell of a guy. He's battle tested, and that's exactly what we need, because this isn't just the local township trustee job. We're running for the governor and lieutenant governor of the state of Ohio. And the state of Ohio is as big as some third world countries. So it's a pretty powerful job, and the politics in this state is ran by two organizations. It's ran by the medical organizations, and it's ran by the State Chamber of Commerce. And corruption runs deep, and hence our rights are taken away. So it's going to take fighters, and we have to be willing to stay the course and dodge the arrows. And there's a lot of arrows coming right now. They're trying to build a black cloud over this campaign, and it's just the obvious stuff. They start with the campaign finance, and 3 months into this, the United States Wage and Hour Board showed up at my doorstep. I'm under a full audit right now.
Well, naturally.
So this is what the establishment does. They try to flood you in lawyer cost, and so you'll just give up and go away. And I tell everybody they don't understand who Joe Blystone is, because at the end of the day, I got some nice stuff. I got a farm, I got a business, but at the end of the day, you can take my farm, you can take my money, but you're never going to take my spirit, my fight, or my freedom. And I don't care if I have to, rent a room at somebody else's house. I'm not getting out of this fight.
It's good to hear. We need people with that have that fighting spirit, and it's and it's a shame that you're dealing with some of those things. That's one of the things people don't. Again, we're talking about the power of incumbency. When you're the person who's behind that desk, and you have at your fingertips that telephone with the phone numbers of every single person that you can use to leverage against your political opposition, people don't realize how much force they're really facing when they're dealing with the machine that is a government, whether at the state or federal level. I mean, we look at, like Michael and I, we're very big proponents of prison reform, and what there are certain things that people get charged for. They spend a ridiculous amount of money and amount of time in jail for. They lose their rights. We want people to have their rights reinstated. We want people, when they come out, they rejoin our society. And then when you sit and you look at what people get arrested for, what they get charged for, and you say, well, I only have X amount of dollars that the state is willing to allow me to spend through my court-appointed lawyer. But there are no limits to how much the state or the government can spend to prosecute you for the crime that they charge you with. But you are limited in how much you're able to put into your own defense. And it translates into so many other things, regardless of whether it's criminal. Look at like what you're dealing with. You're running for office, and they're going to use the power of government, power that you don't have, to put so much additional weight on you that you have to overcome just to get to that next step. There's got to be some sort of mechanism where we have some sort of reform to say how much government is allowed to do to a private citizen, whether it be for just running for office, or what they do to you at the Department of Motor Vehicle, what the Department of Health and Human Services, whatever it is. There's so much power. How do we rein this in? Especially starting with the state level, because Ohio is a barometer for the country. Ohio is the heartland. What happens in Ohio can be transplanted into any other state. How do we get the power back into the hands of the people to say, okay, this is what the government's limits are?
And we have to have somebody on top that's going to push that narrative, somebody that's not looking to be a career politician. Just looking at some of the, whether it's the budget, whether it's our the regulatory when it comes to, just everyday working family or running a business in this state. Many regulations or permits or dog license or professional licensing, there's a lot of redundancy to it. I want a government so small in Ohio that you don't even know it's there.
No, that's the way it's supposed to be.
And that's exactly right. But again, it's going to take somebody on the outside of the outer belt that is going to push for that, and we don't have that. We haven't, and it's just not this administration. I mean, this machine has been built for decades, and again, people don't pay attention, but. I think this year is quite different. We're paying attention now. We are getting involved. Folks that, just like myself, I was never involved in politics. I go vote. That's about my input of politics. And we see that if we don't get involved, our rights they're gonna disappear. Whether it's our gun rights or our health freedom rights or just being able to walk down the street and not having a mask.
Being able to start a business.
Right. Well, so the middle class is being squeezed. We got the multimillionaires and then we got the impoverished people. And the government wants us there with our hand out. Saying, please give me some breadcrumbs.
Well, the more people that you have a dependent, that's the more assured votes that you get, which secure the position. So it encourages you to make more people that are dependent.
That's right.
I think one of the best ways to reduce that dependency on government is going to be the next thing that we want to talk about, education. How do we get to the point where we're putting some power back into the hands of the parents when it comes to education? We've seen all through the last year how many people have been really, really pissed off about being put on terrorist watch lists because they didn't want to have this racially basis, curriculum being put into schools.
Critical race theory.
Right.
Yeah. How do we put that power back into the hands of the parents so that they can be assured that their children are getting an unvarnished, true education, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but this is the way it is. This is how it is. These are your rights, and this is what you have to look forward to.
Well, by gosh, look what happened in Virginia. Youngkin took that state over. A blue state, and it was on that very issue, CRT. Yep. So I think we're going to see. I think that kind of set the tone between Virginia and then obviously the truck driver in New Jersey. Taking over the Senate president position.
That was just what he spent $17 or something like that on his race. But then Youngkin also had a hard lesson to learn this past week. They had that I-95 snow traffic jam that people were trapped on the highway for 22, 24 hours. He's not even governor yet. They blamed him. They said, why isn't Youngkin doing anything?
But
he's not governor yet. He hasn't been sworn in.
That's a clear example, though, how over-reliance upon government is detrimental to people.
Right.
Okay, and that's what happened in that situation. Too many people were reliant upon government to fix the problem when we need to be the ones fixing the problem.
The only silver lining in that whole thing was that I always laugh at how politicians are never really the people who have to experience the wrath of their own legislative, failures. And Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's former running mate, was stuck in that traffic jam along with the rest of the people for 22 hours. Maybe that's the kind of slap in the face that somebody needs to wake up and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this whole big government thing just isn't working out quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's it exactly.
But as far as like education goes, we talk about like firearms. Like I say, I'm the big gun guy. I have books. I go back home. I look and I see in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, even into the 70s, there were rifle teams in the schools. Mm-hmm. Kids learned about guns. Kids learned about and we didn't have any of the problems that we're having today, like with school shootings and stuff like that. And there's a big disparity. And it's like when you mention guns in a school, the first thing I want to do is reach and grab the alarm bell. It's not a dirty word. It's not a bad word. If we don't talk to kids about guns, the only thing they're going to do is talk to themselves about it, and they're going to get the wrong education from the person who doesn't have any experience. And they're going to do some pretty stupid things. What are the possibilities of trying to reintroduce some sort of programs back into the school systems in Ohio where we have gun safety classes that we can teach in the schools, whether as part of a curriculum or after school curriculum or maybe part of physical education curriculum, the way they used to do years ago?
Well, I had hunter safety courses in my school.
Well, we know whitetail hunting is pretty big up here in Ohio. Ohio, Pennsylvania. You go right across. We're all hunters, but that's a parent bringing their kid into
This
that
was
lifestyle.
in school.
Well, that was then, but now, you have. My father, he would tell me about when he would go to high school. There'd be pickup trucks in the parking lot with a gun rack in the back.
Same with my high school.
Now, if you have a bumper sticker that says, I support the NRA, they'll have you towed out of the parking lot. How do we get it to the point where we're not desensitizing the kids so much or getting them into that fear of paralysis that if you talk about guns, you're talking about something bad? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of these anti-gun groups don't understand is education is the most important thing to the gun communities, even as important as the gun itself, is educating yourself about the gun. Had Alec Baldwin educated himself a little bit about the gun, he might not have, killed one person and injured somebody else, even though it was an accident. But how do we do it? I'm just passionate about guns. I want kids. We teach gun safety classes. I have kids to the range all the time, teaching them everything I could possibly teach about gun safety. But there's only so much that instructors can do without the help of the community.
Well, that's how you prevent accidents, is education.
Right.
Okay. When you have accidents, it's almost always attributable to negligence. Okay. And lots of times it's because somebody didn't know any better. So the more educated people are, the less accidents you're going to have.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And we are seeing a rise in accidents because there is less in firearms accidents, because there are less education being presented to, especially to kids, about firearms, about safe handling of firearms, about what to do when they do come across a firearm.
Well, in the last 2 years, we've had 20-some-odd million people have gone through the NICS background checks because they're first-time gun buyers. Mm-hmm. So we know that the gun population is getting larger, but we have to ensure that educating those people is also a priority. While we don't want to mandate things and force people to do things they don't want to do, it's important to us that the gun community be well represented by the members of the community by voluntarily educating themselves and being able to provide some education for them. And we always like to try and start them off as young as possible because, they say curiosity killed the cat. Well, we don't want no dead cats. We want no dead kids. We want kids to know what's going on. I would personally just like to be able to see the Boy Scouts used to do it. The Girl Scouts, I think, may have had a program at some point
4-H
to teach
used
that
to,
4-H.
FFA.
We'd like to see some of that get brought back in. Now, maybe that's not something that you can do as a governor, but maybe it's something that you can kind of talk to somebody about and say, hey, listen, how do we reduce gun violence? Maybe it's by increasing gun education.
And that's right. It seems like a pretty common sense approach to safety of firearms. And that's how I grew up as a kid. I was taught how to fish, hunt, trap. I had my first 410 single shot gun when I was 8 years old. And I was going out on the back 40 when I was 8 years old by myself. So when I tell that story to some adults, they don't even have guns in their house, and they say because we have children. Well,
that's the worst thing you could do.
Exactly. I mean, you should be teaching your children how to safely use a firearm, and again, it's unfortunate that there's so much education that's put back on, the school districts or the local teachers. And this is, we can't teach everybody or everything in the public school systems.
No.
These things should be taught at home. Right. The demise of society and everything that's happening with children, a lot of it has to do with what's happening on the home front. The demise of the nuclear family is gone by the wayside.
Well, the thing is, I agree, education always begins at home, but when I look at the damage that has been done to the nuclear family over the last 30 or 40 years, and I see how many parents are just woefully ill-prepared to teach their children about some of these things, that if they don't have the education themselves, we can't expect them to pass knowledge on to the kids that they don't have. And they might not know where to go and get that education. So if you have a family that doesn't have any experience with firearms, doesn't have any experience with self-defense, doesn't have any experience with if they don't have the means of passing that information down, it would be nice if we could have organizations that are used to doing that, being able to have partnerships with the state at local and state level to say we have these programs, and instead of working against government working against them as if they're enemies, work together to try and promote these. That's why I said, even if it's an extracurricular thing, if there's a flyer in a school that says, if you want to learn a gun safety class, we're going to open the school to instructors to come and have a class to teach it.
The NRA Eddie Eagles program is an excellent program for teaching kids.
Yeah, but try to get that into some blue districts, and you can't get them in.
Okay, and that is, right there, you're just opening the door for these kids to have accidents.
Well, I tell you, you're going to kind of laugh at this story, because if this happened today, the media would be all over it. But, I grew up over on the east side of Ohio, over in Columbiana County, East Liverpool area, and grew up in a Baptist church. And our particular church owned a church camp. So every summer we'd go to church camp, and they had a firing range on that church camp. Mm-hmm. And Sergeant Kelly, back then he could take arms off of the base. So he brought M16s to the church camp. And we as kids, we're 11, 12 years old. We're shooting full M16, automatic at the church camp.
Well, if you want to increase church participation, especially among the youth.
Yeah, but if something like that happened today and come out, my gosh, you'd be on the 6 o'clock news.
Sadly, the only time these days that we ever hear anything about churches and guns is usually for very bad reasons. And we've spoken to, some of the people who've actually put a stop to those things. And thank God they were there when the call went out and somebody needed help. These men were there to put a stop to these things. So we're very grateful. It's one of those things that we don't wish on any community, and that's why we really believe that education is so critically important. And it's one thing to be, people are a supporter of the Second Amendment. You have to be an advocate, and you have to be somebody who's active in the community. Mm-hmm. It's not just enough to say, oh, I own guns, or oh, I support your rights. If you're not initiating some sort of bond with other people in the community to grow the community, and you're benefiting from a right that you're not really helping strengthen. And we'd like to see more people get involved with that, and that goes for everything.
And we have to have those discussions, the hard discussions. Okay, until we start having those, we are going to have a lot of people that are going to be like ostriches with their head in the sand. They're just going to deny that there's a problem because it's not affecting them.
Well, as we've seen in recent months, something can come out of a far-flung laboratory in a far-flung country and wind up affecting the whole world. Everything affects everybody if given enough time and enough of an opportunity. And if somebody has the ability to figure out how to gain profit or power from it, they will figure out a way how it will affect you. And we've got to be able to make sure that we have people representing us that will be that firewall, that are going to say, no, enough is enough, or the people have to come first.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well, listen, we've kept enough of your time. We know that we've got an event coming up the rest of the day. Joe, we want to thank you very much for taking the time to come with us, and we know that you're going to, if the people get to see what we see in you, we know that we have the courtesy of sitting next to the next governor of Ohio. So we're going to be very happy to see you getting sworn in. Now, to let anybody know where they're going to be able to find more information about you, the campaign, how they can make a donation, which would really probably help out too.
Absolutely. We got a couple priorities right now, whether you live in Ohio or other states. Go to our website, Blystone 4, and that's spelled out FOR, BlystoneForGovernor.com. You can read our policies on there. You can sign up to volunteer. You can look at a local event where I'll be speaking. Come out, ask questions, shake our hands, and find out what we're all about. And also, you can get down there and submit a donation because we're going up against the establishment, and the establishment has lots of money. So we have to raise money for this campaign.
Yeah, there's no reason why you can't find a Blystone event that's by you. I looked at your event calendar, and you had all the little bubbles that show you where everything is. The entire state of Ohio is covered in bubbles. So there's got to be something local to you within a 15, 20-minute drive probably that you'll be able to come out and meet Mr. Blystone, hear about his campaign, and get to know the man. We've been sitting here talking for a while before we started hitting the record thing, and we really got to get us. You don't know a man until you look him in the eye and shake his hand. Glad to say that we did both. We know that we got a stand-up guy here.
Yep.
Well, thank you, guys. I sure do appreciate it. And at the end of the day, it's my job to inspire people. Whether they support me or not, I hope I inspire people to get involved in the process, educate themselves on what's happening and where the next fight is. Because if we do keep our head in the sand, we're going to be looking like the country of Australia or some of these other countries where all your rights have been taken away.
Exactly.
The fight is becoming no further than a foot outside your door. And in some cases inside.
Right.
That's right. We're not looking for Red Dawn here.
No, we got the best way to preserve our nation is preserve the liberties that are within it, and the best way to do that is to educate the people as to what those liberties and rights are, and elect people who are going to defend them.
Right. That's right. So.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for joining us on yet another edition of Bullet Soup. And like I said, the information is going to be in the links below, and you're going to be able to catch a video of this on our YouTube channel at both the Range Report and the Liberty First Foundation, and the full-length articles on the L1F.us. So, again, thank you guys for joining us, and you guys, as always, be safe and shoot straight. Nice. You got a way about it, sir.
Well, thanks.